Good afternoon. My name is Donna Marie Collins. I'm the hearing examiner that will be presiding over this afternoon's zoning hearing. This is a request to amend development approvals of an existing commercial plan development in North Fort Myers. My responsibility as the hearing examiner is to hear the testimony and evidence presented in this case and then determine whether the request is consistent and compliant with our land development code and our comprehensive land use plan. All testimony and evidence I take in during this hearing, even from the public, will be taken in under oath. So at the conclusion of my remarks, I will administer the oath to everyone in the room that would like to participate on the record. If you are a member of the public and you wish to participate on the record, at the conclusion of the main presentation, I will invite the public up. If you're going to speak, please come to the podium. We will have an aerial map up on the screen. If you wish, you can show us where you live in relationship to the project. It's not required, but you are welcome to do that. And then you can share with us what your concerns, or if you're in support or you have questions, that's your time. I find that most members of the public are not completely opposed or totally in favor of a project, but they do have specific concerns. If you voice them during this time, you allow us the opportunity to explain further or craft a condition that may address what your concern is. You will get one opportunity to speak, and you may speak as long as you like. We will collect all the questions that are posed by the public, and then they will all be answered after public testimony is closed and we go back to the parties. I do this because my experience has been over the years that people don't listen when other people speak, and we get the same questions asked more than once. So what we do is all questions get asked, the parties make a note of it, and then when we close public input, they go back to clarify any issues that may not have been understood or to explain or answer the questions that were raised. The order of proceeding will be as follows. The applicant's representatives, they are representing the property owner. They will present the request. They may fill us in on some of the long and storied history of this project. That reminds me, everyone, please turn off your phones. Turn off your phones or put them on silent. If you must take a call, please step out. The property owner's representatives will present the case. Usually their testimony involves more than one person. They may be experts that speak on environmental law, traffic, and other areas. When they are finished, the county planner that reviewed the application and prepared the staff report will also make a presentation. I may have questions of them, but once the planner has completed their recommendation, I might take a brief break, and then we'll go to the public, and that'll be your opportunity to speak. All right. If you plan to speak on the record, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony and evidence you give will be the truth?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm ready to begin.
With that, we'll call Cindy, who has testified here before as an expert in land use planning and zoning, and will testify to that effect here today.
Okay, thank you. This is the PowerPoint. This will be applicant exhibit 1. Oh, the 48-hour was applicant exhibit 1. Applicant exhibit 2 will be the PowerPoint.
Good afternoon. My name is Cindy Leal Brizuela, and I'm the project planner for this request. I have been previously qualified as an expert in the Lee Plan and the Lee LDC, and asked to be qualified again for this case.
Yes, you may proceed. I have one question. Are we going to get a replacement master concept plan, or is the master concept plan that was submitted with the application still governing?
Yes, that's still governing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. This subject property is located north of the Caloosahatchee River in North Fort Myers. It is located immediately south of Hancock Bridge Parkway and is west of North Cleveland Ave. It is currently zoned CPD and is permitted a marina with up to 352 dry boat storage slips, 24 wet slips, 5,864 square feet of office uses, and a max height of 50 feet. The future land use, as noted in this map, is predominantly, I'm sorry, I think I skipped one. No, that's fine. The future land use map is shown on this screen. We're partially in the intensive development future land use category, which is noted in the pink. We're also in the wetlands future land use category, which is noted in the green. The property is proximate to some central urban, which is located north of Hancock Bridge Parkway and west of Palm Ave. And further to the west is Moody River and that RPD, and that is all in the suburban future land use category in the yellow. The property is in an urbanized portion of the county, as noted on the surrounding land uses map. There are a number of multifamily residences in proximity to this site. There's an estimated total of 750 condo units along that corridor on Hancock Bridge Parkway. There's also an assisted living facility, and there's a number of commercial uses as well, including the Naughty Parrot restaurant, Seacraft restaurant, and there are also boat and jet ski rentals. There are a number of boat slips along Hancock Creek as well. The total slip count is approximately 130 wet slips. The CPD amendment being requested would allow for a reduction in the dry slips from 352 to 160 dry slips, and an increase in the wet slips from 24 to 50 wet slips. We're also requesting clarification of the approved uses, which would consist of 4,500 square feet of boat sales / office, 1,500 square feet of restaurant uses, 800 square feet of retail, and 980 square feet of a food truck area with no more than 3 trucks proposed. The maximum building height being proposed is 135 feet. The property is located along what we consider a water-dependent area. It is noted on Lee Plan Map 1H as number 29. This outlines water-dependent uses and shows us where there are water-dependent uses that would be appropriate. In this case, a marina would be an appropriate use for anything in the water-dependent overlay. The property is zoned CPD, which is commercial. Everything in the red is also commercial. There's an assortment of conventional and PD commercial zoning around the site. To the north of Hancock Bridge Parkway is an MPD where there is an assisted living facility. Further west is a number of areas that are zoned residential, predominantly the Moody River RPD is in that area. And there is also some residential RM2 here. That's the North Star Yacht Club. Due to the property's location within North Fort Myers, there are a number of urban services that can readily service the site. These include a sheriff's station, a fire station, and Lee County EMS. The yellow dots represent Lee Tran bus stops, which are all in proximity to the site and run along Pondella, as well as, this is North Cleveland, sorry.
So there's no bus route on Hancock?
There is no bus route on Hancock Bridge Parkway.
Okay, thank you.
Can I clarify something?
Sure.
Brian Smith, for the record. There is an express route on Hancock during the trolley. About 220 feet to the east of our site is an existing trolley sign that's on our side of the road, as well as on the opposite side by Salterra, the assisted living. So it's part of that express route during trolley season.
During what season?
The trolley season here downtown Fort
Trolley
Myers.
season.
Yeah,
So it's running right now?
it should be, yes.
And where does it run? Between what and what?
It basically runs that same route, but it's Hancock Bridge Parkway.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And with that, I would like to call up Christian Casey, our project environmental consultant.
Thank you.
There it is. Christian Casey, environmental consultant with Atwell. 3 primary habitats were identified on site and consist of disturbed land, shrub and brush marsh, and mangrove swamps with varying degrees of exotics. Oop, sorry. A protected species survey was conducted in November of 23. During the survey, no species listed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service or the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission were observed on site. On October 15th, 2024, the South Florida Water Management District issued a formal determination of wetlands and surface waters for the subject property. The determination concluded the presence of 2.05 acres on the site. Brian Smith, project planner.
Good morning again, Brian Smith with Insight and Principal for the company. Located right here downtown Fort Myers. Been in business for 27 years. I've been doing this kind of work. You're going to get a brief kind of a overview looking at the master concept plan, but I'll go into that a little bit more in detail a little bit further in the presentation. But I wanted to kind of go over two items right now. Is a water management exhibit, which, as everybody knows, the South Florida Water Management District, their rules and regulation has changed, and those go into effect December 25th of 2025. We're also regulated by FDEP, but the way the water management system is going to work on this piece of property is that, as well as every other property in Lee County, is that all stormwater is collected on site, it is treated, it is stored prior to its release, and currently what we have proposed is stormwater from either the roof or the parking lots will go into pretreatment area, exfiltration trenches, etc. Will make its way around, and then a final discharge will likely occur within the existing wetlands that we are preserving on the property, which is to the west of the site. Also wanted to quickly go over the fact that we do have utilities. We do have a letter of availability that was provided to us by Lee County Utilities. We have an existing 10-inch water main that runs right along our property line that runs east-west, as well as an existing 8-inch PVC gravity main that there's a manhole right at our entrance. This runs east as well to around close to the Palm Avenue, and it goes up to a lift station. So there's adequate utilities on the subject property for connection.
So is Lee County Utilities both water and sewer?
They are, however, the sewer, it's Lee County Utility Sewer, but it goes to FGUA plant. But it is your sewer facilities.
Before we do Yuri, I'd like to have Christian come back up and just put his qualifications on the record.
Okay. Has he not presented here before?
I have before. Do I need
All right, go ahead. Just
just a quick?
you were speaking as an expert. Explain what you're.
Sure.
I just wanted to make sure since there's people.
Understood. Christian Casey, environmental consultant with Atwell. I've been in the field for 6+ years, degree in civil engineering and biology. Worked in Southwest Florida as an engineer and as a biologist for 8+ years between the two. I don't know, is there anything
Okay.
specific?
Thank you.
Good afternoon. For the record, Yuri Baikal with TR Transportation Consultants, and I have been sworn in and previously accepted as an expert in transportation planning, and would like to be accepted as one today as well.
Yes, please proceed.
Thank you. So we prepared our typical rezoning traffic study that was completed consistent with the traffic study guidelines as adopted by Lee County. As part of our traffic analysis, we first prepared a trip generation comparison between the proposed zoning on site that it's in front of you today versus the approved zoning. So this table here shows you that trip generation comparison during the AM peak hour, PM peak hour, and daily trips. So the first row here shows you the trip generation for the proposed zoning. The second row shows you the trip generation for the approved zoning on site. And then the last row shows you the trip generation difference. And as you can see, there's a couple negative numbers shown on this table, which basically means that this is a reduction in traffic, potential traffic on site as a result of our proposed zoning request.
What do you attribute the reduction in trip generation to?
This is mainly due to a significant reduction in number of slips, of dry slips specifically. So there's a significant reduction, I believe, and 166 dry slips, so that's where it comes in.
So the project as proposed is overall a reduction in intensity over the existing approvals?
Yes, yeah, correct.
Thank you.
Actually, and then more specifically, as you can see from this table, so during the AM peak hour, the trip generation reduction is approximately 39% over existing zoning entitlements, and then 10% during the PM peak hour, and then 43% over the entire weekday.
And this project is in a different planning horizon than originally projected, but based on the roads as they exist today, the impacts are within adopted levels of service?
Yes, so even though this is a significant reduction in traffic over the entitlements, we still did our typical level of service analysis on the roadways. In this case, we analyzed Hancock Bridge Parkway adjacent to the site, and it was shown to operate at acceptable level of service C in the future build-out traffic conditions, both with and without the project traffic.
And what is the proposed build-out year?
For the traffic study purposes, we typically go out 5 years into the future. So in this case, we went out to 2028, just for analysis purposes. It's a relatively small project, so it's not gonna probably take that long to build, but obviously we don't know exactly when it's gonna be built, so. And again,
I just asked you one question before you go to the next slide. You say you do your typical traffic analysis. That looks at the list of permitted uses, then uses the worst case scenario, is that right?
yes, correct.
And that's what you did in this case?
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
And again, even though we're still in rezoning process, we still have to go through development order process if this rezoning is approved. And at that time, we'll be required to prepare a much more detailed traffic analysis. So basically the point is that there's still a traffic study that will be required to be done before any vertical development occurs on this property. And then the other thing I want to talk to you about is about deviation number 4 as part of this application, which is basically seeking a deviation from Land Development Code Section 10-285A, which requires a minimum spacing requirement or 440 feet on arterial roadways, and we're requesting to allow for 274 feet between the access points. And the reason is because, first, this is the only means of ingress and egress we can get to this property, and we're lining up with an existing full median opening that's already there along Hancock Bridge Parkway. And the staff and us are in agreement of approval of this deviation. Do you have any other questions?
No.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Hans Wilson. I'm a licensed professional engineer. I've been recognized by the county as an expert in marine engineering, environmental consulting, marina design, and regulatory agency permitting, and have been doing this for the better part of 40 years. The project that we're proposing is truly optimally sited for dry storage wet slip marina facility. There is quite the demand for these facilities in the county. We're running very short on available space for boat dockage. Within close to a 5-mile radius of this site over the past, I think, 15 years, we've lost over 600 slips by conversion of commercial facilities to residential condominium. Case in point, Triton K down the street, at one point in time had entitlements for 50 boat slips, and they've elected not to build any boat slips at that location. So those 50 slips that would otherwise be occupied by residents out of that community, those residents that are interested in boating are now having to go to public facilities, whether it's a ramp or commercial marina, for getting boating access. That's just one example of multiple facilities that exist in the Caloosahatchee River that basically have the opportunity for boating access but choose not to pursue it. Other places, Oasis Condominium, um, the Beau Rivage. And we've got a lot of waterfront facilities that have been converted from commercial to residential. And so the need for commercial access, particularly in North Fort Myers, where we have a significant lack of those types of facilities, is really, really important. It's very difficult to find a location that has both good upland access as well as boating access. If you take a look at this graphic right here, you can see that we've got this originally excavated area, which is one access location that's deep water, but the main marked channel is down through here. This is a marked maintained navigation channel. Average depth in there is controlling at -5 feet mean low water, which is pretty standard for our waterways. We've got deep access water in the proximity of the project site. This area is really a confluence of many boating activities. We've got the 130 slips that we identified on the north side of the canal here, but one of the things that we neglected to include in here was the total number of slips that exist on the south side, as well as this undeveloped property, which also has boating slip entitlements. So you're probably close to 250 slips total with build out within this entire community on this canal system accessing through here. So it's truly a boating mecca, and not just from a point of origination, meaning these boaters are leaving this because there are residents that exist here, but we've also got these commercial uses where boaters are coming to these locations to go to the restaurant and to do it by boat, which is a very popular recreational activity for most boaters. We don't have a lot of waterfront restaurant type destinations in Lee County, so that's something that's very positively looked at in the boating community. We also have upstream on Hancock Creek, up in this area, extensive canal system with lots of residential boaters. This is all in a manatee zone. This is all slow speed zone. This is the buffer right here. So everything that's in this area is all slow speed operation. So it's really a great location. We've got boating access to the water, to the marked intercoastal waterway through a marked navigation channel that's maintained, as well as excellent access on the upland with Hancock Bridge Parkway, divided 4-lane highway, and close proximity to US 41. North Fort Myers is underserved in terms of boating access. The most recent marina facility in closest proximity to this was the Prosperity Point Marina on the north side of the river. As you go over the Edison Bridge headed north, you can see what happened to it with Hurricane Ian. It's a mess. That was really the only serious or significant commercial marina other than Paradise Isle Marina, which is further down the shoreline in Cape Coral, that exists. There's just not that much boating access for commercial or the public to get to the waterway. This is a close-up of the location. Again, we are buffered by a conservation area here, so there's no residences in this location or in this location that would be affected by a dry storage operation. We are on Deepwater Canal access. The Hancock Creek flows down through here and through this area and out, so it's got good water quality, it's got good tidal exchange. So those are some of the things that we have to meet with the state in terms of water quality. Again, it's a reduction in the total number of slips from 352 to 160 dry. We're increasing our wet slip storage. Part of this is staging for the dry storage operation. Keep in mind that of the 160 slips in dry storage, on the best day of the year, say 4th of July, we may launch maybe 16 slips out of the dry storage. But those slips need space to tie up as staging to go in and out of the dry storage. So while we've got 50 wet slips proposed, there's a certain amount of those wet slips that would be dedicated for staging for the dry storage operation. So it's not 50 wet slips dedicated in the water. That's important in terms of the total slip count that takes place with the site. I've already talked about the other items that are in here. Again, you take a look at these destinations with the Naughty Parrot Tiki Hut restaurant, all the different activities that take place up this canal, including the personal watercraft rentals. This is really in the center of quite a boating community, and it's really a super appropriate use for this location in terms of servicing not just the vessels that exist in this area, but in providing access for upland residents that don't live on the water but want to partake of our waterway resources that we have in the county. This is where we stand with the Manatee Protection Plan. It's an area of special concern in the river. We have our shoreline is based on the amount of linear footage of shoreline that we have. And that allows us to have the 50 slip maximum. In order for us to facilitate the 160 dry storage slips, we're going to have to find a donor property and transfer slip credits from those donor properties. We have a number of donor properties that are available. One of them we're in a contract with, but that's been sort of put off to the side as they resolve some ownership issues. So we do have sources for transferring slip credits. I don't know if you're familiar with that. I'm happy to advise you on what that system is if you're interested.
I am familiar with that. I worked with that when I was at the county attorney's office. So you need 160 slips from another location.
Yes, ma'am.
And this is for the dry boat
Yes, ma'am.
specifically.
Correct. In the interim, if they do not secure the upland site, if there's no way for them to transfer boats from the land into the water via travel lift or gantry assist or anything like that, they still could operate and have like a boat dealership operation on that site where they could have boats. If they just can't launch them into the water, then they really would not count as a boat source. Again, the whole premise behind the Manatee Protection Plan is where the boats are originating from and what threat do they pose to manatees in the river.
Okay, so the request represents the best possible case scenario for the developer and worst case scenario for impact to the waterway.
Correct.
All right, so it could be less than that, but won't be more than that.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Cindy Leal Brizuela for the record.
Okay, before you start, I read the 48-hour notices, and my understanding is the 48-hour notice from staff represents codification of all the changes that were proposed in the applicant's 48-hour letter. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I can work off that document in preparing the recommendation?
Absolutely.
Okay, all the uses that need to be in are in, all the uses that are not are out.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. Begin.
I just wanted to outline briefly the original schedule of uses for this site. It references something very interesting, which is marina accessory uses as defined by LDC section 34-2, which is the definition section of our zoning chapter of the LDC. The reason that we are modifying the schedule of uses to look like this is we've actually broken down what those uses are, the marine accessory uses. The problem with initially tying an LDC section and generalizing marine accessory uses is that at some point in time, that section of the LDC can be amended without notification to any property owners, because there's no way of tracking how many zoning resolutions have marine accessory uses listed. So by breaking them out this way, which is traditionally what's done in more recent cases, we're able to clearly state what we're proposing.
So it still includes marina accessory uses, but the specific accessory units that you hope to operate on the site are
Have been
broken out
added.
separately?
Yes.
Thank you.
That was all I wanted to add on that section. I'm gonna ask that Brian come back up and discuss the master concept plan.
Good afternoon again, Brian Smith for the record. First I want to kind of go over what the existing CPD master concept plan looks like. As you can see, north orientation is Hancock Bridge Parkway is along the north side. You can see that the existing access point, or the existing CPD access point, is also lined up with the median. A large parking area towards the north portion of the site. Their office kind of location that they had, the 5,864 square feet, is located on the east portion of the site. And everything else in red here that you can see was proposed as not only their dry storage that was raised multi-story, but also their areas of concrete for, they were proposing more of the forklift type of situation. So you're going to see some consistency between both our master concept plan and their master concept plan when we went through this process. So with our master concept plan, and Hans eloquently stated that, you know, we are in a Mecca boating community. I mean, this is where we are, this is where we live, and a lot of people move here for that reason. And our clients looked at this piece of property as not just a way to have boat slips, but also how can we engage the public into their property. So why would they just have boat slips? Because typically when you have an area of just dry storage, it's not open for the public. It's typically, I have ownership in there, I store my boat, that's when I'm gonna come and go. But what they wanted to do is they're also consistently keeping the access point at the median cut. And when you asked earlier about the master concept plan, the only change was a slight shift of this access point moving over a little bit because of the turn in that's already existing there. And it is important to note, there is also an existing right turn lane decel into the piece of property coming eastbound from on Hancock Bridge. But again, with the consistencies, we still have the parking area to the north of the site. We have the proposed boat sales facility to the east portion of the site. And again, it's consistent with the existing master concept plan with the parking on the north and then kind of like the office area location to the east. Their existing boat slips, our dry slips, was also towards the south portion of the property. Ours as well. We're housing it only in one building, but then we're also having an area here that's open towards the public that would be considered, that's why it's called Cabana Cove. It's more of a beach feel with an opportunity to have a restaurant in this location. So when you come as a boat and an owner and a patron, you come and you have an opportunity to visit this location, kind of see these operations. And then the food truck park area, it's just a location in the center that would allow a food truck or two to come and park there, and I believe we have a maximum of 3 in our request. But one of the main differences between the two pieces of property and between the master concept plan is, as you can see here, the property line on this one, I'm just trying to follow it around here, it is built almost to full extent. They provided 80% impervious and only 10% of open space. In ours, we're preserving wetland areas of mangroves on the western perimeter. We have a minimum of 30% open space requirement and a lot less impervious. So those are some main differences in the project. We're also providing a strong pedestrian connection that there's already sidewalks located along Hancock Bridge Parkway. We'll have that sidewalk come all the way through the project, all the way throughout the entire piece of property. The dock systems that you see here that was on Hans's presentation is a dock system that he designed that would also allow pedestrian access along the waterway itself.
Is the plan for patrons that not necessarily use the dry boat facility to come there and frequent the restaurant? Is that what some of these wet slips are designed to accommodate?
That's correct. Yes, ma'am. Because what they also wanted to put up here is a sales facility for boat sales. We do have a display area along Hancock Bridge Parkway, and that display area has to conform with the codes 34 dash, I think it's 1352, I believe. Don't quote me on it. I have it written on my paper, but that's basically on a display area. When you have boats or RV displays, you have to be 25 feet set back. You got to provide a 2-foot undulating berm, 5 trees per 100 linear foot, shrubs to grow to 36 inches. So that is a landscape buffer that is required along the frontage here. We also have a landscape buffer, a 25-foot type E buffer right adjacent to the Parkway condominiums. And that consists of 5 trees and 30 shrubs per 100 linear feet, plus an 8-foot wall. So we will actually have a wall in this location that's just adjacent to their subject property. We kind of went through the master concept plan on the last sheet. This one kind of color codes it a little bit for you for ease of reading. Again, as we stated, the sales office is located on the eastern side of the property. Again, consistent with the previously approved master concept plan. The parking facilities are north of our dry slip building. Again, consistent with the existing commercial plan and master concept plan. We're also showing the location of the beached grass open space area that is open for the public, as well as a kind of a restaurant canopy bar area that would be available for patrons for both coming by vehicle, also by coming by boat. We have our stormwater management areas as well as our preservation areas around the site that we also are color-coded. The light green is indigenous wetland area that we are preserving. That is an area of high quality, good mangroves that, as the previous CPD did not preserve anything along that western side, we are preserving quite a large amount. Again, quickly went over already that the east landscape buffer, again, I want to reiterate, it is 25 feet right adjacent to the Parkway condominiums. Again, 5 trees and 30 shrubs per 100 linear feet. The shrubs are supposed to grow to mature height. They're not supposed to be trimmed up, and an
This is
8-foot
a
wall.
type E buffer, you
It's a type
said?
E, yes ma'am.
With wall.
With an 8-foot wall, yes ma'am. Again, anytime you have vehicle sales display, it triggers another code in chapter 34 that requires the setback of that display area as well as a landscape buffer that's 25 feet. It's not considered a type D or an E or anything like that, but it does have its own specific rules and requirements. Again, a 2-foot undulating berm. It has 5 trees and the double hedgerow, which is you typically find for your type D buffer, but then the trees are also upsized. They, instead of a typical 10-foot tall tree, they're required to be planted at 14 foot in height, so you get more of a screening effect for any kind of boat display area. Again, deviation 1 was to allow a reduction in indigenous requirements, because in the LDC, when you have open space requirements, and let's say it's a 30% open space requirement, 50% of that has to be indigenous if indigenous does incur on the project site. And so what we've done to make this a viable project, what we've done is we've preserved an area along the western side, but we weren't able to actually meet the 50% of that open space when the CPD before preserved nothing. They had 10% open space. We have over 30%, and I believe on our master concept plan, we show that we're preserving 42% open space on the property. And so the deviation 1 would allow us to reduce the 50% open space for indigenous down to 34%, but we are above and beyond our required open space in general on the site. Again, kind of went through this deviation from that section requires 50% open space to be preserved. So out of the 4, so the majority of the project, as you can see on an aerial, and instead of backing up, is you can see when you visit the site, it has been disturbed. It was used as post-Ian for boat storage and it's just been disturbed over time, even since this first CPD was started, because they actually even pursued a development order at one point, and I believe that was all withdrawn a long time ago. Deviation number 2 is vehicle interconnect. We're asking for a deviation from section 33-1573 C2. It requires that when you go through a rezone, it requires parcel interconnects within Lee County. So instead of having a parcel interconnect, we cannot go to the west because it's all conservation area, but instead their only opportunity would be going to the east. That's an existing condominium project called the Parkway Condominiums. Their parking lot ends there. They have sidewalks, and we did not feel that it was appropriate for commercial uses to access through their parking lot into access Hancock, as we already have a full median cut at Hancock Bridge Parkway. And again, this is the deviation section 33-1573, and the reason for it was what I previously stated. And then I'll send it back up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cindy Leal Brizuela, again for the record. I'm gonna go over the 3rd deviation. This is a deviation from LDC section 34-1264, which requires a minimum of 500 feet between COP and consumption on premise and a dwelling unit under separate ownership. We are requesting 340 feet due to the multifamily condominium being located, the closest dwelling unit, that's not working for me very well, sorry. Here, this building right here is the closest dwelling. What you see to the south of that is essentially an amenity area for Parkway condominiums. The reason that we're asking for this is the area between the proposed COP use and the existing multifamily spans the multi-slip dock, the multifamily amenity area. We also have found that if there's any sound emitted from this area, shown here, this is where the COP is, and you can see the hatch right here under the bar canopy area. It would be, it'd have to emit from here and travel all the way across our Hancock Creek itself, and then amenity, then dwelling unit. The closest that they have between their amenity and their dwelling units is 52 feet. Given the configuration of the adjacent multifamily to their own amenity site, as well as the distance and the waterway between us and them and their dwelling unit, we feel that 340 feet is ample distance. It would also still be under the noise ordinance that the county has, so we don't feel that that would be an issue down the road.
Cindy, before you leave this topic, let me just refer you to page 9 of the staff report, where the staff goes through the distances from this use to the residential and has a list of 4 conditions. Have you reviewed those conditions, and does the applicant agree with those conditions regarding time, noise, that sort of thing?
Yes, this one was fine, sorry. We are in agreement.
What page is that on?
Page 9.
Oh, I see.
Page 8.
And that goes over hours of operation and things like that, so we're completely okay with that, and it would,
I heard 9, and I was looking
I
at,
said 9 because I had flipped the page, so I'm sorry.
okay. Now I'd like to go over the review criteria for any zoning actions, which are, first one is complying with the LEAP plan. This is per LDC section 34-145 D4A1. Again, this is for any zoning actions that require a public hearing. They must comply with the LEAP plan. The first policy that we would like to discuss is policy 1.1.4. The LEAP plan describes the intensive development category as located along major arterial roads and suited to accommodate high densities and intensities. Mixed-use developments of high density residential, commercial, limited light industrial, and office uses are encouraged to be developed. The proposed uses and intensities are consistent with the underlying intensive development future land use category. Additionally, pertaining to objectives 2.1 and 2.2, which are for development location and development timing, requires developments to promote contiguous and compact growth patterns to contain urban sprawl, minimize cost of services, contain urban sprawl, and direct new growth to urban areas that can adequately be serviced by public facilities. The proposed plan development amendment is located on a currently unimproved parcel surrounded by wetlands, open water, and commercially developed properties, and bordered on the north side by a major arterial roadway. The location supports a compact and contiguous growth pattern where public facilities are readily available. Goal 4 provides general development standards, which are further broken down into objectives 4.1 pertaining to water, sewer, reuse, and environmental standards. While the proposed amendment does not contemplate an excess of 30,000 square feet.
slow down just a little bit for me, please.
Absolutely, sorry. While the proposed amendment does not contemplate an excess of 30,000 square feet of commercial intensity, the property is within the LCU service area. Therefore, it will be serviced by Lee County Utilities for water, consistent with Standard 4.1.1. Similarly, the project is within the LCU service area for sewer service, and therefore the project will connect to adjacent sanitary sewer lines, consistent with Standard 4.1.2. Additionally, consistent with Standard 4.1.4, the subject property was assessed by an ecologist, and their findings were provided in the companion environmental assessment / protected species survey. The report addressed existing conditions as well as the mitigation efforts to be realized through the permitting process. The proposed uses and companion site plan fully incorporate the surrounding environment to maximum extent possible, acknowledging the site's natural environment is one of the key attractors contributing to commercial tourism. I would also like to note that the adjacent property to our west is a conservation area that covers over 10 acres. So we are providing ample buffering as well along that western portion of the site to supplement their conservation. Policy 5.1.5 requires the protection of existing and future residential areas from any encroachment of uses that are potentially destructive to the character and integrity of the residential environment. The subject area is proximate to one residential project and is not located in an area that is a residential environment, as noted by the surrounding future land use, zoning, and existing uses. The subject property abuts the residential project for a length of approximately 90 feet. Additionally, the portion of the residential project which the subject property abuts features the residential project's accessory amenities, not the dwelling units themselves. Policy 6.1.1 is commercial development, and goal 6 is pertaining to commercial land uses. So 6.1.1 has a section which covers all of the commercial criteria that we need to look at. That includes traffic and access, landscaping and detailed site planning, screening and buffering, availability and adequacy of services and facilities, impact on adjacent land uses and surrounding neighborhoods, proximity to other similar centers, and environmental considerations. As noted, we have gone through that list of criteria and noted that pertaining to traffic and access impacts, we are located on Hancock Bridge Parkway. The road service is not going to be impacted negatively based off the level of service analysis conducted by our traffic consultant. Pertaining to landscape and detailed site planning, there will be natural screening, which will be provided through the preservation of mangroves. We're also consistent with the outdoor display section, as Brian previously mentioned, pertaining to the screening of the display area. Regarding availability and adequacy of services, we are serviced by LCU per the letter of availability dated November 21st, 2023. Regarding impact on adjacent land uses and surrounding neighborhoods, this is a very marine-oriented corridor. It would benefit from a marina through the generation of local revenue and as well as multimodal opportunities afforded by the site, not just boating, but bicycle and pedestrian connectivity as well. As far as proximity to other centers, as previously mentioned by our marine engineer, the closest water-dependent use is over a mile to the east of the property, past Edison Bridge. And again, regarding the environmental considerations, we are preserving our indigenous vegetation to the maximum extent possible and providing enhanced buffering. Policy 6.1.4 promotes commercial tourism in the North Fort Myers community. 6.1.5 protects the traffic carrying capacity of roads and streets from incompatible commercial development. The proposed amendment's companion traffic study supports the assessment that the uses will not trigger a level of service deficiency for the adjacent road network. Alternatively, the proposed reconfiguration of uses and intensities results in a reduction in the maximum trip generation of the project. Policy 6.1.6 requires commercial developments to provide adequate and appropriate landscaping, open space, and buffering The application proposes the retention of indigenous preserve areas to the greatest extent possible, as well as the buffers that meet or exceed LDC requirements and are consistent with the commercial corridor overlay, which is further noted in policy 30.2.6. And we have policy 6.1.8 pertaining to the protection of schools. The property is not located near an existing or planned school. The request also supports Goal 8, which is marine-oriented land uses. As previously mentioned, the subject property is located as number 29 on Lee Plan Map 1H. And and further protecting the site and adjacent preserve areas from incompatible land uses. The proposed request is also consistent with Goal 30 of the Lee Plan. But I'm gonna let Hans speak to some of the marine uses, and then we'll jump back into North Fort Myers.
Before you leave, let me just ask you a question, since you went through some of the compatibility questions. On page, I'll hopefully get it right, page 12 of the staff report, the staff looks at compatibility and goes through a rather in-depth analysis of the heights that are permitted and exist and other uses in the area, and found that the request is compatible. Did you have a chance to evaluate the staff analysis, and did you agree with their position?
Yes, we are in agreement with staff. We believe that the site is highly compatible with the surrounding land uses. Again, being located within MAP 1H supports marine-oriented land uses, and as Hans will go over, the conversion of those uses is generally detrimental down the road for boaters in that community. Additionally, we are located in an area surrounded by what is a mix of commercial and residential, which has been working quite fluidly together. There's a good mesh between the two in that area. And I'm sorry, was there another part of the question that you wanted?
Answer the question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Lee Plan consistency, always a challenge when we're dealing with waterfront facilities. It's very difficult to get from the land to the water without having some sort of environmental impact. So I'm hopefully going to be able to explain to you some of the things that are occurring here that's to our benefit in terms of this project. Development within the coastal hazard area must be compatible with the natural systems and protection of and conservation of sensitive coastal areas is very important. We are on a mix of a natural water body and an artificially constructed canal. We do have those varying rule constraints that apply to those types of locations. We are isolated from existing mangroves by a vertical seawall retaining wall. On the east side of the property is vertical seawall that clearly defines the edge of the water and then the upland. There's no transition area.
Can you show that to me on a map so
I
I
can.
visualize it?
Let me see if I can get you to something that will show you that. Yeah, this will work. So basically this is artificial canal. This actually was originally partially a natural water body that was further dredged. Hancock Creek is a natural water body. There is a vertical seawall that runs along the property along the whole eastern side, and down to right about here it stops, and then we have a large mangrove fringe that exists in front of that wall, defining that location on the landward side. So we've got a seawall boundary that clearly delineates the upland from the wet areas, whether it's the canal part or whether it's the mangrove part. The dock access at this location actually was historically a dock. And so in order to get the access to the floating docks out here, it made sense to let's punch through the mangroves where we already have an existing opening, where there was already a fixed commercial dock that went through that location. So we've minimized our mangrove impacts. The floating docks out here are all located in front of the vertical seawall, so we don't have any mangrove impacts with that particular location as well. And then on the west side of the property down here, this is all conservation lands, mangrove wetlands, part of this conservation lands here was dedicated by the developer for Mangrove Bay, which is the multifamily condominium that's on the west side of Hancock Creek. And then part of this is transitional area. It's not that healthy mangrove system. It's really more of a transitional buttonwood, sort of moderate upland wetland areas. So and we're preserving those. So we're centering all of the development in the appropriate areas on the property for that particular development. See if I get us back to this. Again, as I said before, the docks proposed to the opening of the mangroves. We're going more and more with floating dock systems for a couple of reasons. We've taken away some significant lessons from Hurricane Ian, and that is floating docks are much more adaptable, particularly the infrastructure, including the electric, fire suppression, water supply, in terms of the storm surges. Fixed docks were inundated, a lot of costs associated with the infrastructure. Power pedestals, electricity, floating docks much more adaptable to those types of storm surges and those types of changes in those events. While it talks about protection of human life and property from natural man-made disasters, it's very difficult to have a waterfront facility that's a marina that's not on the water. And as a result, we do have some wave energy that comes through, but we're tucked in the back part of the property. We don't have a very large exposure to the Caloosahatchee River. So we've got this mangrove fringe that's on the south side with a retaining wall behind it to help attenuate wave energy. We've got a seawall that's on the east side of the property, and we have floating docks. The property is designed to deal with, per FEMA, elevations required for those activities in those locations. So it's basically prepared to deal with natural and man-made disasters. Again, the mangrove fringe would be maintained. And then as part of our permitting with the agencies, I'll just go back, it talks about a marina management plan for proper waste disposal. But the reality is that when we go into permitting with the DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, they're the water quality certifying agency. Before we can complete our federal application, we have to have that state approval, whether it's Department of Environmental Protection, which it would be here, or South Florida Water Management District. Their permit constitutes a certification to the Clean Water Act. And before the Corps of Engineers can issue the federal permit, you have to have that Clean Water Act certification from the local state agency, from the state agency. And as part of that, we'll be required to prepare a marina management plan. And that marina management plan will deal with all those potential pollution sources that come with a marina operation. Fueling facilities, if we choose to pursue that, debris management, garbage pickup, transfer batteries from boats, just basically those things that go with operating a waterborne vehicle, for lack of a better term, on the water, including management of fuels, oils, greases, those types of things. That marina management plan is going to be part of the requirement of the state agency for them to issue water quality certification, which is basically the permit, the state permit.
You'll have to do one under the LEED plan as well.
That's correct. We'll have to do one for the development order under the LEED plan. So, and they're basically usually one and the same. And in fact, the DEP permitting requirements for the marina management plan sometimes is more extensive than what the county requires. County requires certain different things than the DEP does, but that will all be prepared as one package that will go in as part of the development order.
All right, so this property is in the coastal high hazard area. No residences are proposed, but you're saying it would have to be elevated to comply with minimum flood, or?
No, the dry storage doesn't need to be elevated because it's not habitable.
What about the boat sales area and the bar?
I'll let Brian respond to that.
Okay, just when you come back up, please address that.
Okay, so as I mentioned before, we're in a slow speed area all year. That's that quarter-mile buffer from the edge of the river. It's been known that the manatees travel up and down the river, along the river edges. They're getting smarter about staying out of the way of the main center of the water of the Caloosahatchee River, where most of the boats operate. And generally speaking, Most vessels that operate at slow speed don't create a wake, so we don't have a wave energy or a boat wake energy issue within the canal to occur. The need and continued use by the general public, again, we're operating in and out of marked navigation channels, so there's no impacts on any seagrasses or wetlands in the area. We've been struggling to establish seagrasses in the river, but that's not something that we can control. That's really more of a control of the Corps of Engineers and freshwater discharges from Lake Okeechobee. Again, the hurricane impacts to the boating industry, and we've had this loss of boat slips over the years, not just from the conversion of properties from commercial to residential, but also from the hurricanes. You can go down and drive past the yacht basin and see how many slips are out of play there. We're just now getting Legacy Harbor back online, getting it rebuilt. We've got, as I mentioned before, Prosperity Point Marina there on the north side of the river. Who knows when that's going to be rebuilt? Those slips are out of play. So we've not only had the impacts of permanent conversions of land, as I mentioned earlier, but also temporal impacts as a result of hurricanes. Again, the bigger issue that we're finding too is that our boat dealers are struggling to be able to maintain boat sales, because when a buyer comes in and says, I really want to buy this boat, they'll say to the dealer, do you know where I can put it? And the problem is there's no space for these people to be able to put their boat in order to be able to operate in our waterways. So the available boat mooring space is restricted. And if you really want to get a good sense for that, go down to the Punta Rassa boat ramp on a weekend and see how many available parking spaces there are now that that ramp is open. That was another impact in our industry, was with the Punta Rassa boat ramp, the busiest ramp in the county, closed to rebuild the Sandoval Causeway. All those boaters were displaced, and there was a struggle. There's actually been a downturn in boat sales because people can't find a place to launch the boats or to store their boats on the water. And then again, demand for open slip storage from the public is continuing to increase, but we're not meeting that need. The most recent survey I saw for Charlotte County, which is not too different than Lee County, it's a smaller population, they're woefully underserved in their boating access in that community, and Lee County, I'm certain, is in the same predicament. Okay, located areas of maximum physical advantage. Again, I showed you the bathymetry with the two accesses, marked navigational channel. We've got a shoreline that's been stabilized with mangroves, vertical seawalls. We're not located in the end of a dead-end canal as the other facilities are upstream of us. In fact, we've got pretty good flushing as a result of the waterways, both from Hancock Creek flushing down from the west, as well as the interior canal system that comes down from the east. Again, adequate effluents to support facilities without damaging something of importance underneath the screen right there. The uplands of sufficient size to support the facilities and have limited impact on wetlands. I think we've done a good job of designing to protect the wetlands that are on the site as much as possible. And again, we don't have any rare, unique systems within the impact footprint. A lot of these wetlands here, while technically wetlands, it's not like a thriving, pristine mangrove system. They've been disturbed, they've been mowed, they've been impacted on the sublevel. They also have exotic vegetation in them as well. Under boat maintenance activities, you've got a stormwater management plan, you've got a marina management plan. Because it's a commercial marina, we'll be required to secure a national pollutant discharge and elimination system permit, which is even a more restrictive permitting process that governs how you operate your marina, what kind of pollutants you produce, requires that you monitor your discharge off site when you have a rain event on a quarterly basis. You actually take samples and send them into a water quality lab to make sure that your pollutants are being captured and treated on site and not going into the adjacent water body. A much more rigorous management program than any condominium would be required to adhere to. Again, the marina management plan deals with fuel and oil containment. It deals with sewage pump out. Basically things that we're looking at providing convenience for the boaters that are coming to the site and using the vessels. Most trailable boats, most dry storage vessels generally don't have holding tanks, but some of them do for the convenience of some of the guests, and so we'll have places that they can, typically in a fuel space, or usually it's the launch location, there'll be a drop location for those temporary containment vessels, units on the vessels. Again, disaster preparedness required. Fueling facilities, we'll address that in the marina management plan. Natural vegetative buffers, again, I don't want to be too repetitive. We've kind of been through the west side and the south side having extensive mangroves. And then the seawall, actually, that's on the south side and the east side of the property, helps define the stormwater management basin. Again, continuing on with these policies, new facilities on uplands and proper maintenance of fuel equipment. Again, dealing with marina management plan sort of addresses all of those potential sources of pollution that would be created from this particular development. There's no dredging proposed with the project, no habitat destruction. We're able to create everything without having any impact to mangroves on the waterward side. We do have some wetland impacts associated with the upland development plan. One of the things that people don't really take into account is that floating docks themselves create habitat in waterways, because you have all these sessile organisms like barnacles, oysters, tunicates. They all attach to the bottoms of those floating docks as filter feeders. So they're constantly bringing in suspended organics as a source of food. And so we actually kind of create our own little artificial reef with these floating dock systems. That's one other reason why I tend to lean towards floating docks in our waterways if it's not in a really super exposed location. Again, design to minimize impacts while retaining needed space for facilities. Policy 128 talks about dry storage is encouraged. Certainly it is, because it does a number of things. It consolidates the location of the vessels. It keeps them undercover in most cases. And it's basically a better management tool by consolidating all that boating activity and sort of preventing a sprawl out where wet slips, it's basically one slip per that square footage. Dry storage, I can have 3, sometimes 4 vessels in that same square footage. So it's a more efficient storage mechanism for vessels. Policy 128.514 talks about water quality. We'll have to go through and prove to the state that we are meeting water quality standards. Based on this location, I'm very comfortable that we can meet section 10.2.4.3 of the applicant's handbook that talks about flushing in the 3 to 4 day time frame. And then again, policy 128.515 talks about existing navigation channels. We have those marked. That's important. And with that, I'll turn it over to Cindy unless you have any questions for me.
Thank you very much.
Cindy Lead Brizuela, for the record. I did want to go over goal 30 of the North Fort Myers community, which covers the North Fort Myers community plan in our Lee plan. It's important to note that when this project was originally approved in 2008, the North Fort Myers community plan was roughly a paragraph long in our Lee plan. It has now developed to a much more comprehensive component which guides development in this area, in this community. And so over the last few years, a lot of that has been codified within LDC section 33, chapter 33, which covers the certain planning communities, North Fort Myers being one of them. So starting with policy 30.2.5, which outlines supplemental development criteria for properties within the corridor overlay district, which we are in, consistent with LDC section 33-1566D. The property's frontage along Hancock Bridge Parkway makes the corridor overlay district regulations applicable to the subject property. Furthermore, policy 30.2.6 allows for developments within that district to utilize the development standards outlined for mixed-use overlays. The subject property is consistent with both policies as further noted in the companion master concept plan. The buildings on the property are only set back from the Caloosahatchee River. This has a water body setback of 20 feet, which is the requirement under LDC section 33-1571A3. Additionally, Article 8, Division 3, outlines other provisions for development in the commercial corridor district. Specifically, it allows for properties located within the mixed-use overlay, which we're not located in, but we can incorporate based off of our location abutting Hancock Bridge Parkway. We have to incorporate publicly accessible open space, which we will provide. Additionally, the location of parking areas will not be required to connect with adjacent sites due to lack of joint access easements, common driveways, or vehicular interconnections between subject properties and adjacent properties. Furthermore, pedestrian connectivity is already featured along the site's frontage, which will promote a safe and cohesive walking and biking environment for patrons. The existing sidewalk along Hancock Bridge Parkway will further be enhanced by bicycle facilities, which will promote multimodal transportation efforts throughout the community and the corridor. The proposed MCP depicts a parking area, which is also consistent with the LDC pursuant to Chapter 33. So I'm kind of going back and forth between the LEAP plan policies and the LDC sections because they kind of work in tandem in North Fort Myers. We have the policy in the LEAP plan guiding what is essentially implemented through our LDC in Chapter 33. So moving on to policy 30.3.1. Landscaping improvements are proposed along the property's perimeter, abutting Hancock Bridge Parkway via 5-foot type A landscape buffer. Policy 30.5.3 requires the protection and conservation of the site's natural resources. I think we've gone over that extensively, especially through review of the master concept plan. This is essentially a summary of all of the policies and objectives, which we are consistent with in the LEAP plan. Jumping into the review criteria once more, as we recall, Part A of the review criteria for zoning actions requiring a public hearing is consistency with the LEAP plan, which we've just reviewed. Part B is that it meets this code and other applicable county regulations or qualifies for deviations. The proposed request meets or exceeds county regulations, and the deviations were requested due to the environmental constraints and the configuration of the site. C, that it is compatible with existing and planned uses in the surrounding area. As discussed, the proposed use is highly compatible with existing and planned uses in the surrounding area. The development of the parcel as a marina is also consistent with the property's water dependency status per LEAP Plan Map 1H. D, that we will provide access sufficient to support the proposed development intensity. As we noted in the companion traffic study, the adjacent Hancock Bridge Parkway has sufficient traffic carrying capacity to accommodate the development of this marina, as well as the accessory uses at the proposed intensity. E, that the expected impacts on transportation facilities will be addressed by existing county regulations and conditions of approval. There are no expected adverse impacts on transportation facilities identified at this time. As Mr. Baikau mentioned, a more detailed traffic analysis will be required and conducted at the time of development order once uses are specified and an intensity is essentially designed. F, will not adversely affect environmentally critical or sensitive areas and natural resources. As we reviewed through the companion master concept plan, it preserves native vegetation to the greatest extent possible, protecting natural viewsheds and resources from incompatible uses. G, will be served by urban services as defined in the LEAP plan if located in a future urban area category, which we are as we're in the intensive development future land use category. The site will be serviced by Lee County Utilities for water and wastewater uses. We have a letter of availability from LCU, and as Brian mentioned, we have potable water and sanitary sewer lines adjacent to the property. LCU referenced in the letter that they have sufficient capacity for potable water and sanitary sewer service. Additionally, plan development rezonings require additional criteria.
Can you just slow down, start again, please? Additionally?
Yes. Additionally, plan development rezonings have additional criteria for review. The first of which is that the proposed use or mix of uses is appropriate at the proposed location. As we reviewed, the site is highly compatible with the surrounding land uses, which do feature a mix of residential and commercial uses and are all very much so marine oriented. B, the recommended conditions provide sufficient safeguards to the public interest and are reasonably related to the impacts on the public's interest expected from the proposed development. As we've discussed, staff has conditioned this project, and we are in agreement with staff's conditions pertaining to all of the development criteria, as well as hours of operation for marina and everything else. C, if the application includes deviations pursuant to section 34-373, that each requested deviation enhances the achievement of the objectives of the planned development, and 2, protects the public health, safety, and welfare. As we had discussed previously, all of the deviations requested have been requested because they enhance the objectives of the planned development and ultimately do protect public health, safety, and welfare. Sorry, apparently I winged it and had the notes on the next slide. Proposed conditions regarding that, we are consistent with the final/approved MCP. We're in agreement as far as the schedule of uses as previously mentioned, and there were other conditions listed as well which we are in agreement with, as well as the installation of the shoreside pump out stations should there be any liveaboard vessels, which none are proposed at this time. Everything regarding boat maintenance and small engine repair or anything like that would need to be consistent with an NPDES permit for commercial marina facilities. So in conclusion, the conversion of properties with public water access to private development with no boating access increases demand on other boating facilities. We're in an ideal location for a public marina use based on existing deep water marked channels. We have excellent upland road access, especially with having that median cut just on the other side of Hancock Bridge Parkway. And we have, of course, proximity to major population centers, including downtown Fort Myers, this corridor of Fort Myers, which is very much developed, and Eastern Cape Coral. We help ameliorate local demand for boating access that is highly reliant on, sorry, that got cut there. On opportunities along the Caloosahatchee River. And then we also are compatible with our surrounding and land uses based on our proposed use and intensity. And this is, of course, a significant downzoning of the intensity based off the previous approval.
I have a question. I didn't see that you requested liveaboards as part of your permitted uses. Is that something that would require further development approval if they were going to have liveaboard vessels in the wet slips?
Do you want to take that, Hans?
Because that's, I believe that's gonna have to be requested if you want it.
Okay. I believe there's a condition regarding the liveaboards, but I'll let Hans speak to that.
Practically speaking, liveaboards are not a great revenue generator for marina facilities unless it's a very large marina and it's got accommodations for those. Between the boaters coming to the site to want to go to the Cabana Cove theme, boaters originating from the site as staging, and whoever may actually put boats in there as part of interest in purchasing a new boat, because remember, they're on the boat sales display location, but when someone buys a boat, they also need to be able to test it. So I don't think that we're going to find liveaboards to be a compatible use on that site, just from the standpoint of the practical application and the activities.
Understood, but it sounds like she says if we have liveaboards, and I'm saying if you want liveaboards, you need to ask for liveaboards, because right now, liveaboards is not contemplated as a use. That's all.
Yeah, it's
So,
not on the list of permitted uses.
discuss.
I would say no. I'll defer to the attorney and her conversations with the ownership.
Yes, if we have it, we're gonna do it. Because liveaboards are permitted by the DRI.
And I can really make this easy. The state frowns upon liveaboards on state-owned sovereign submerged lands. So I would say no.
We do not have liveaboards on the schedule of uses. If we were to propose liveaboards, we would have to come back for an amendment.
Okay, thank you. Does that conclude the applicant's presentation?
Yes,
Okay, I'm going to take a 10-minute break. We'll resume at 2:30.
thank you.
Okay, we're ready to begin, please. Okay.
Good afternoon. Brian Smith again for the record. I wanted to answer your question about elevations of the building, et cetera. Our elevation for anything that's habitable, like an office, has to meet the requirements of FEMA. So for example, if the FEMA flood zone in this location is, let's say, AE8 or AE9, our minimum finished floor elevation will have to be at that 9. Typically, it's 1 foot above that because it's an insurance thing, so you do get it 1 foot of freeboard.
So this would apply to your sales center,
Yes, ma'am.
and it would possibly apply to this COP building?
Depends on how it's actually designed. It can be designed to, it can be below that if it's designed so during any kind of an issue or any kind of a storm, nobody occupies that building. If it's just an open air cabana, then no. But if it's like certain things that are habitable, yes.
Boat barn, no.
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Is that the end?
Yes, ma'am.
Applicant, okay, we'll go to staff now.
Good afternoon, Madam Hearing Examiner. For your record, I'm Adam Mendez. I'm a principal planner with the Community Development Zoning section. I have been previously accepted in this forum as an expert with respect to the Lee County Land Development Code and Comprehensive Plan. I'm hoping to be accepted as such for today's presentation. I do have some exhibits to hand over to you. I have staff's PowerPoint presentation, and I believe the affidavit of publication was provided with the staff 48-hour notice.
Yes, that is Staff Exhibit 2. Staff Exhibit 1 is the staff report. Staff Exhibit 3 will be the PowerPoint. Oh, good. Thank you for giving her a copy.
There's 2 copies for you and an extra copy.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, so we've just heard an extensive presentation regarding the zoning and long-range plan framework that this property is currently associated with in the county's development standards. And so just a quick recap from the top. It's in the intensive development future land use category, at least its uplands portions are, which is the highest, most intense, as the name would suggest, future land use category in the Lee County Comprehensive Plan. It's also on the water-dependent overlay. It's map 1H, I believe, as being a water-dependent overlay, 150 feet landward of the mean high water line on this project. So the actual zoning that's currently in place has always anticipated, at least since the 90s, some sort of marina land use. So the analysis contained in the staff report wasn't whether or not a marina is appropriate here. That's kind of been predetermined in other zoning actions. What we're looking at is the difference of what is being proposed as to what was previously approved. And so I'd like to focus my presentation on the salient points, the nexus of the staff report with respect to things like compatibility, and then the 48-hour response letter that were issued after the staff report, just to clarify those. And at that time, I'll also clarify some of the comments that were made here before you regarding liveaboards and some of the uses, accessory uses that are anticipated to be part of this project moving forward. And so as part of the staff report, right at the first page, you'll see that there is a summary of net changes from the original zoning resolution. And so I have it boxed off in 2 categories here. We've got the category here, which these are significant changes. This is the boat slips, currently approved 376, requested 210. That's a net change of 166, so negative 166 compared to what was approved. And then we have a significant increase in height from 50 feet to 135 feet that's proposed. And so that there's going to be some discussion into how staff came to a recommendation of approval on this notable change here. And then you have some of the less notable changes, but really just subordinate intensity, some of these uses that weren't contemplated in the original development scheme, but our staff finds to be compatible with the marina land use in an incidental and subordinate fashion. So I want to highlight 3 areas of the master concept plan just to show you that subordinate intensity. So that first area in green is going to be the display area that's going to have, it's demarcated as about 10,000 square feet on this 5-acre site. It'll have watercrafts, boats that will be displayed here behind a land development code required buffer. That buffer has been described in this record. Over in the center of the parking area, we have a food truck plaza. It accommodates 3 food trucks. It's a pretty small food truck operation, clearly incidental, clearly accessory to the primary purpose of the site. And then the last piece that's kind of described in that new subordinate intensity that isn't really contemplated in the current approval is this bar canopy area, which is, as you see just by the scale, it's 1,500 square feet. And that's the limits of the COP, the consumption on premises, for which staff has proposed conditions that take care of any adverse impacts that may come from COP anticipated in this area.
So the COP doesn't include the entire grassy beach area?
It does not, no. It is limited to that, within the confines of that canopy. And so the zoning is commercial plan development currently, and I wanted to walk through some of the prior master concept plans, and we have had that presented here before you today. I just wanted to go back one more step to the 1991 master concept plan, this is map 1H of the Hancock Bridge Development Regional Impact, which was approved in 1991 with a companion commercial plan development rezoning as part of the board's adoption of the current CPD zoning on the property. And you can see at that time, there appeared to be 2 phases of buildings that would house up to 400 slips, 200 slips annotated on this map 1H. They were going to be developed at 50 feet tall. The footprint's much larger than what's currently proposed, as the footprint's actually more consistent with the size of one of these buildings now. You can see that the sales office and all of the accessory uses were listed on this L-shaped office building. It's located near the Parkway condominiums, and then the parking is kind of a generally consistent circulation. Fast forward to 2005, where the last extension request on this development of regional impact was made, and some changes were made. The master concept plan was revised to show actually a larger footprint of building area. You heard the testimony here was that there was going to be more forklift operation anticipated, so there was more area here for that purpose of that particular type of dry boat storage operation. So the parking stays in the north side of the property, and the building maintained its position here. So what we're currently proposing right now is the boat barn is going to be in a substantially similar location. It's going to reach a height of a maximum of 135 feet, albeit the staff report does acknowledge that that height is probably more of for a cushion for design. It probably won't actually be realized. But needless to say, staff evaluated surrounding area for compatibility with a proposed 135-foot boat barn to see what that looks like in the context and the fabric of the surrounding area. And so I'm going to walk you through some of these areas adjacent to the North Key Canal and walk you through why staff found that 135 feet is appropriate, not just based on what's existing, but based on what can exist under current zoning and planning entitlements without rezoning. And so the first building of note is going to be the North Star Yacht Club, which isn't very far from the subject property. The property appraiser's office has listed this as a luxury high-rise, max stories. It's got 13 building stories that are indicated. The development order plans that are attached to the staff report indicate that this is 135 feet tall. There's the max height in Lee County right there. Well, not in Lee County, but in the future land use category, intensive development. And it's in close proximity to the subject property. And so as we work our way west, there's a step down once we get past the commercial Naughty Parrot, some of that building and offices that are between the North Star Yacht Club and Marina Town condominium, where you have a mid-rise, which is defined as 4 to 7 stories. It's a 4-story building in that location, where then there's a step up at the it's listed here as Marina Cove, but that's actually not the current name of the Parkway condominium. So this is the Parkway condominiums. It's also listed as a mid-rise between 4 and 7 stories. It's listed as 6 stories here. So we'll work our way across North Key Drive and reach one of our closest condominium towers on North Key, and that's going to be Moorings Point, which is 8 stories, and also in this particular condominium is considered a high-rise. So here's a pictometry aerial of North Key Drive in proximity to subject property. You can clearly see this building right here.
Yes.
So it's listed as 8 stories. It's estimated to be about 95 feet tall, but I don't have the exact height on that building on any county records. So you can see in this pictometry oblique angle, this area, this corridor, especially along the river, is highly vertical. The separation between the nearest buildings and where the actual boat barn will be, we staff find is sufficient. It's at least 500 feet from the nearest residential condominium building. That's a fair step down or fair transition before reaching that increased height that staff finds appropriate. The other component of this height analysis is there is a mixed-use overlay corridor that is in proximity to the subject property. And I want to highlight that this undeveloped land here near Moorings Point is zone CT, or tourist commercial, and it's in the mixed-use overlay. That mixed-use overlay allows buildings to realize the maximum height in the future land use category, in this case intensive development, 135 feet, without additional setbacks, without variances. And that was recently displayed in development order plans submitted to the county for a Marriott themed condominium hotel that was in plans on that key. And this was going to occur without any zoning action, without any variances. It's because that is the current framework of the zoning and planning in this area, is to allow this vertical development. So you can imagine all of this vacant land can also reach a realized potential of 135 feet.
And are those development orders in progress?
Those development orders are not in progress. They have expired. They'd have to resubmit, but it was a demonstration that it is possible. It is potential. And that's part of the compatibility study, is compatibility with existing and planned uses. And we have here, I think, a demonstration to make a point that verticality in this area is anticipated. In the staff report, we mentioned some marinas in the state of Florida that kind of reach this level of height. One was the F3 Marina. This is in Fort Lauderdale. Just to give kind of a picture for scale as to what 130, this is 130 feet listed in the staff report, looks like in context with surrounding boats, canals, vehicles on the road. This is 130 feet in Fort Lauderdale. Now, whether or not this facility reaches that entire height with 160 slips that they have to transfer in from other recipient sites, we don't know, but we can envision this being a compatible land use given the framework that it's currently in from the Lee Plan and Land Development Code criteria subject to this planned amendment.
Can we go back to your pictometry
Yeah.
image? So you're saying all the vacant land there
Yes,
would be 135?
correct, without additional setbacks, mixed-use overlay standards.
Without further rezoning either?
Without
Straight to
rezoning.
straight to development order?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So post the staff report issuance, the applicant followed suit with a 48-hour response letter just identifying outstanding issues. One of those being the clarifying that their property development regulations that was attached to the staff report exhibit had an updated version that did reflect the proposed height here, and also a focus on the commercial school use, which wasn't included in the staff recommended conditions. However, they have restricted it to the use activity group sailing and marine-oriented outdoor lifestyle, which staff has no objection to. Further, there was discussion on the record here today on whether liveaboards were anticipated. It was during staff's review that the marina classification itself would give way to liveaboards. Liveaboard is actually, while it's a defined use in the definitions in the zoning chapter, it's not listed as an actual use classification on any use regulation tables. That includes section 34934. That's the table that lists uses that are potentially obtainable in planned developments. There's no liveaboard classification. Section 34-1861 is the Lee County Land Development Code section that pertains to liveaboards, and it specifically states that liveaboards can only occur in marinas that are zoned for marina, essentially. That section states that, then provides some exceptions for captains with certain licensure. So it was our understanding that some of these wet slips could become liveaboards just by virtue of the principal use of a marina being on the schedule of uses. There is a condition regarding pump outs in the proposed conditions of approval that was carried over from a prior zoning resolution, this 2005 zoning resolution that we are amending, which mentioned liveaboards but didn't list liveaboards because it's not a use per se.
So you're comfortable with the possibility of liveaboards?
Yes.
And that the condition that is drafted will cover any environmental issues associated with pump out, et cetera?
Yes, ma'am, I do believe it is an appropriate use should they decide to allocate some of those slips to liveaboards at this location. I think it's consistent with the Land Development Code and Comprehensive Plan, which the applicants put on a thorough presentation, and I think the written record would support that too.
Okay. Thank you for addressing that.
You're welcome. And there was just one more omission I wanted to mention, and I'd like, seeing what comes in from the public to see what may further be modified on the schedule of uses and development regulations. There was a request by the applicant to list transportation services group 1. That was parsed out. It's not listed in the recommendation before you. Group 1 in the LDC is actually subdivided into two groups, 1A and 1B. 1A is your small vessels, water taxis, fishing charters, smaller vessels. Group 1B is your local and international cruise ships, which aren't proposed here, are probably not appropriate here. So staff would have no objection to the inclusion of transportation services group 1A to allow things like fishing charter or water taxis. And so I just wanted to put you on notice of that as our discussions continue with public comment.
So on the 48-hour, you're saying that it does not currently include that use, but you don't object to its inclusion provided it's limited to group 1A?
That's correct.
Okay, let me make a note of that. Because I'm going to work off of your 48-hour. Transportation services, group 1A. Thank you.
You're welcome. I wanted to mention one more point, one more finding that's in the staff report with relative to compatibility with the surrounding area in this boat barn at a potential height of 135 feet. So the Land Development Code for all commercial buildings includes architectural standards. Those are standard architectural standards found in Chapter 10. In addition, Chapter 33, under the guidance of Goal 30 of the Lee Plan, includes enhanced architectural standards, enhanced landscaping and signage standards, and per policy 30.2.5, which is listed here but cut off, says within the corridor overlay district, deviations from landscaping, buffering, signage, or architectural requirements may not be granted unless they meet the rigorous standard of a variance. Variances aren't proposed, or deviations aren't proposed here from architectural standards, so that building will have to provide articulation and predetermined architectural style and features that are consistent with the Goal 30's vision of creating an attractive, architectural compatible community. No deviations.
Does that apply to all sides, though?
I believe it applies to all sides that face residential and to the streets. That's correct.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. And so, while the staff report conditions provide adequate protections to mitigate offsite or adverse impacts, I want to mention some of those conditions. Schedule of uses and development regulations have been refined to really point out that the primary use of the site is still a marina. There is some subordinate intensity that is appropriate with this principal use of a marina. That's not going away within the water dependent overlay. We have open space and indigenous preservation conditions, as well as marina management conditions that deal with water quality management, mangrove conditions, Norfolk Myers design standards, and then also marina operations and open storage limitations, which kind of carry over from prior zoning approvals, where some of these operations of forklifts and things were concerns to the nearby Parkway condo and Moorings Point condo, which are the closest towers in proximity. So some of these things have been flushed out in public hearings regarding the use of this site as a marina with a dry storage boat barn and the proximity to these towers, these residential towers. And so there's also the addition of COP specific conditions that list the actual use that it may be in conjunction to. The actual area is limited to 1,500 square foot hatched COP area. It's on the master concept plan. It's hatched within the building. The time limitation we feel is appropriate given its distance. And I wanted to point out that that distance between the COP area and the actual nearest residential building is well over 500 feet. The distance that the LDC requires you to measure from is from the COP entrance or exit to the nearest property line, which, as you saw the lay of the land, their property line actually kind of comes down. See if I can find a good aerial. Their property line actually comes down right here. So the distance from that tiki hut, which is right here, was measured. That 500-foot distance, that deviation, is from the distance required in the LDC from about here. The nearest residential condo is just east of the amenity site. So there is a distance that is greater than 500 feet between the COP demarcated areas proposed and their nearest residential unit. It's just the LDC requires that distance to be measured to the nearest property line that has that.
Okay, let's go back to the conditions, because I want to discuss one of them.
Yes.
Okay, live entertainment, amplified sound. I'm interested in hearing your rationale for what I consider to be a very generous time frame for the use of amplified sound. I have no objection to entertainment, but with amplifiers over water, I'm wondering whether those time limitations are too generous.
Understood. So I see two gradients of live entertainment, so it's discussing both live entertainment and amplified sound, piped music, things like that, that may be more at conversational level or just something that you'd anticipate going to a tiki bar or something like this. Right. There'd be live music out of an amplified sound system, but it's not quite at the intensity of like live entertainment on a stage with a musician. So staff would have we could work with the applicant to try to make a distinguishing condition between live entertainment and just piped music. And maybe that could further increase the chances of compatibility with this particular consumption on premises use and this bar cocktail lounge use.
Okay, well, let's wait to hear from the public, but right now that's a concern of mine. If we could put a finer point on that condition, I would feel more comfortable in terms of a finding of compatibility.
And so with that, my presentation, I'm happy to address any further questions you may have, and I will pull up a map for the public presentation.
Yes, please do, and thank you, Adam. Members of the public, now it is time. I'm going to go through the list of people who filled out these public participation forms. If you have not filled out a public participation form, please consider doing it, even if you do not plan to speak, because if you provide your email address, you will receive a copy of my recommendation in this case and notice of when the final board hearing is on this case. Because this is a planned development and a change in intensity to an existing planned development, I am not the final decision maker. I prepare a recommendation to the board, so there will be a second hearing. If you speak at this hearing, you will be able to address the board. Like I say, you don't have to speak, but if you'd like to receive a copy of my recommendation, you may want to fill out one of these forms and provide your email address so that you can find out what I recommended and what when the board hearing is. First person I have is Rosetta Schwering.
Right, I'm not gonna speak though.
Okay.
But I just wanted the email of your decision.
Okay, thank you. Pat Paulson.
I didn't want to speak, I just wanted the email.
Okay. Amber Williams.
Yes, I'll be speaking.
Please come forward at the podium. State your full name, and if you're here in a representative capacity, explain to us who you're representing and where they are on the map.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Amber Williams. I'm an attorney with Godey DuBose and Cross. I'm here on behalf of Parkway Condominium, and I can point it out.
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, there's a clicker. Thank you. Oops. How do I? It's located here.
Thank you.
And I have, we emailed in our objections, but I have 3 copies of the objections as well to be entered into. 1 second.
Can the applicant and the staff?
Yeah, that
copy
way.
of the objection,
It goes
please?
to Neil Montgomery and then to Adam Mendez.
Thank you.
And this will be public exhibit 1, and you're representing Parkway.
Condominium Association, yes.
Please begin.
Thank you. Okay, again, my name is Amber Williams. I am counsel for Parkway Condominium Association on behalf of approximately 72 residential unit owners located at 3462 Hancock Bridge Parkway in North Fort Myers. We submit this statement as our formal objection to the proposed CPD case number DCI2024-00017. I presented you with the copies of our objections, but and in there it highlights several of the most critical concerns that raised in that filing, but I will also go over those today. So Parkway community is immediately adjacent to the site that the developers plan on developing on. And the applicant characterized this request as a marina modernization. However, it is a substantial intensification and transformation of the site into a high-intensity commercial and entertainment destination next to an established residential community, my clients. The proposal includes, as stated before, 160 slip dry stack structure up to 135 feet in height, a 210 slip marina, outdoor watercraft sales and display, food trucks, and an open air bar and cocktail lounge with late night hours. These are not merely marina uses. They are independent commercial and nightlife drivers that will generate continuous activity from early morning industrial operations through late night entertainment, which directly impacts our residents' quiet enjoyment of their properties. So first, and the most important one, is deviation number 3. It would allow the open bar to be located only 340 feet from residential buildings, even though the county requires 500 feet for alcohol serving establishment near homes. The bar's proposed operating, which you kind of just went over, the bar's proposed operating hours extend until midnight on weekdays and 2 a.m. on weekends with amplified sound and no enclosure. Noise travels especially far across water. As you can see there, we're on a marina, so there's some water located there. And Lee County's noise ordinance establishes strict nighttime limits to protect the residents. So approving this deviation would knowingly authorize a predictable, reoccurring nighttime nuisance that cannot be meaningfully mitigated by conditions alone. The project also proposes early industrial marina operations beginning at 6 a.m. When those early operations are combined with the late night entertainment, the result is about 16 to 18 hour window of recurring disturbance. So the operational profile is fundamentally incompatible with an established residential community situated directly across the water. I believe we're probably the closest condominium located near the area that the applicant wants to develop, so we will be directly impacted. We also object to deviation number 4, which reduces the required driveway spacing along the Hancock Bridge Parkway, that huge bridge, parkway there. This creates foreseeable safety hazards on an already burdened corridor, particularly during the late night departure, surges, and weekend peak boating activity. Of course, if people are leaving an open bar that ends at 2 a.m., obviously we can anticipate some type of traffic around that time. So that again impacts the residents for a Parkway condominium. We further object to deviation number 1, which seeks to reduce indigenous preservation. This project requires stronger buffering, not less, given the scale, height, lighting, and hours proposed. So yeah, and sorry, one second. Also, any reduction in indigenous vegetation directly undermines compatibility by increasing visibility of industrial operations, decreasing natural sound absorption, and exposing residents to glare, machinery movement, and other operational impacts. And again, that's speaking to not only the music, but the height of the building, the lighting from that area, and the hours proposed for the hours of operations for the marina and for the open bar. The only deviation the association does support is deviation 2, eliminating any vehicular interconnection to Parkway's private internal roads. If this project advances in any form, that separation is essential to the residents' safety and security. So for these reasons, the association does respectfully request a full denial of the CPD amendment. Alternatively, at minimum, deviation number 3 is our biggest concern and what we would want to be denied. If any approval is considered over our objections, we ask that it include strict enforceable conditions, including earlier bar closing hours, a prohibition on amplified sound after 9 p.m., enforceable decibel limits measurable at the association's property line, no industrial handling operations before 7 a.m., robust sound attenuation features, and full lighting shields to prevent glare into neighboring homes. The county's land use standards exist to protect health, safety, welfare, and compatibility. This application, as proposed, fails those standards. Parkway asks that you recommend denial to protect the residents who already live there, and also a lot of the residents in this community are elderly, and they, and it's also, so it's obviously something that will impact them. This is a retired area, especially in our condominium. A lot of the people that stay there are retirees, so the noise, the lighting, all that is very impactful, and it impacts their quiet enjoyment to their property. Those are objections, and do you have any questions?
I don't. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I will hand it over to anyone else who wants to
Mike
speak.
Pomper?
Wait.
Oh, you have questions?
Many.
Okay, because she's not a witness. She's an attorney.
Okay,
advocating for it.
well then, if that's the case, let me ask, is what you just put on the record, is that evidence, or is it just legal argument? Under the administrative code, I'm not allowed to ask you questions from an attorney if it's legal argument. So if it's just legal argument, I won't ask you questions. But if you put that information on the record as evidence, then I do need to ask you questions.
Well, it's our, oh, I'm sorry.
I mean, I interpreted her presentation as legal argument. She was explaining how the application as proposed is not consistent with the governing principles for approval. I did not hear her putting forward evidence per se.
I didn't either, and that was a concern. I mean, obviously,
Okay.
there's a noise ordinance, we have lighting standards. She's not an expert
And
in
you can
traffic.
discuss that in your rebuttal.
Okay,
That's when it's appropriate to talk about that.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Pomper, thank you for coming.
Apparently, I'm one of those elderly people that live at the Parkway.
Yeah, that hurt me too, so.
I know. But my
That's all
wife,
right, you'll be here someday if you're lucky.
my wife Carol and I live at the Parkway. We lived there for 20 years, and I can look right out my window and see this proposed property. It is, and I have a couple. Overall, I'm not object to the development of this property as a marina rack storage facility, but I do have some concerns. Number one is this height. I think this height is, I could understand a 50-foot height for his building, but 135 feet will be, a 50-foot rack storage building will be noticeable. A 135-foot rack storage building will be obtrusive. It's going to be the focal point of what I see out my window. The second thing is, of course, the noise. The noise is, I agree with you, these hours of, for the consumption of alcohol and amplified music, I think are way too generous. I could understand a 9 o'clock time, but I can't understand a midnight time. I don't think any of these restaurants, bars, down the sidewalk operate on that schedule. Apparently we are 500 feet, but it's not enough across the water if they're going to be playing amplified music till midnight. I don't stay up that late, I'll be honest with you, I'm elderly.
Will now.
So basically, I mean, there are some just concerns. I mean, I don't have an objection with with the idea, the concept, but I think these things need to be addressed, and again, mostly the noise. I never really thought of the lighting, but the lighting could be a real issue as well. You know, I don't want a light shut into my window every.
Well, you can take comfort in knowing that the county's regulations are quite strident on that, and that will be
Yeah, yeah.
addressed in the ordinary course during development.
Okay, well,
There's restrictions on that sort of thing, light intrusion.
okay. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Bill Davin? Thank you for coming.
Well, thank you. My name's Bill Davin, and I'm the representative of the Board of Directors for the Parkway Condominium Association. And we're not opposed to developing this property, but there are a couple of things. Mike brought the height issue. The sound issue is definitely going to be a problem. We do get sound pollution from the existing marina bands every once in a while when they're having activities down there. But noise is the big issue for all the 72 unit owners over there. The other is that we agree with deviation number 2, if it does go forward, that we have a very small parking lot, and with the trolley stop that's in front, people come into our parking lot, park, and take the trolley downtown, so they don't have to pay for parking. And so at times there's 7 or 8 cars out there. If they were to put that opening into our parking lot, we would lose 9 parking spaces, and that becomes a significant outlier. And then traffic on the Hancock Bridge Parkway is always a problem, and I don't see in your calculations where it's going to be safer to have more trucks, cars, making U-turns and turns in the median strip at the Hancock Bridge opening in the highway. And other than that, the other reason I'm up here is because I want to be able to talk at the next meeting. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. James Martin. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming.
Hi. My concern is these boats that go into storage, they have to be cleaned before they get put in storage. Where are they going to be doing all this pressure washing and the noise, with storing the boats?
Okay, we'll ask them to clarify that issue.
Okay. And supposedly there's going to be an 8-foot wall. Is that going to be between our property line and the street?
I'll ask them to clarify that for you.
That's it.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Is there anyone else that is here that did not fill out one of the public participation forms that wishes to speak? Okay, I'm going to close public. Okay, one more question. Come on up. After this question, I'm going to close public input, and I'm going to come back to the parties.
Who's he?
Yep.
State your name, please.
Mike Pomper from the Parkway,
Okay.
and I just had another question. I didn't hear anything regarding how these boats are going to get in and out of the water. I know there's different systems to do these now, but are we going to have a loud, huge forklift beeping all the time?
That's fair. We'll have them clarify the.
Okay, well, sure. I just don't know what it is going to be.
Okay, thank you for raising.
Well, let me ask you a question before you leave. Did you get a chance to get a copy of the staff report and the proposed conditions?
No.
I would recommend that you contact Adam and ask for a copy because he's addressed mufflers so that there's not going to be backup beeper noise.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I never saw it.
Okay. I just wanted to check. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm closing public input, and I'm back to the parties. I'm asking whether you need a 5 or 10-minute break.
Yes, please.
Okay. Before you do your closings and rebuttals and address to the issues that have been raised. So let's say we'll resume at 3:30.
Okay.
we are back on the record. We have closed public input, and now we're back to the parties to address any questions that were raised and to make concluding remarks.
Yes, thank you. We'd like to call as our first rebuttal witness, Hans Wilson.
Wow, it got really cold in here. It is cold.
Mr. Wilson, the Parkway folks in their letter indicated that they would like to see this commercial zoning denied. If this zoning is denied, would that prevent a marina from being constructed on the property?
No.
Because,
Well, it's a commercial facility, commercial marina. It's appropriate for the location and zone for it.
well, and let me talk about that. You know, there was a lot of discussion about the water-dependent overlay. In layman's terms, in my terms, that basically encourages you to use these properties within the overlay for marinas and other types of uses. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
One of the requests they have, if the hearing examiner doesn't recommend denial, is the installation of substantial sound attenuation walls capable of reducing noise transmission toward residential areas. You've worked on and developed and permitted hundreds of marinas?
Yes.
Is it possible to have a sound attenuating wall around your marina and still have it function as a marina?
No, you have to be able to get from the land to the water, and you can't get through a wall with something like that.
And you spent a lot of time talking about that upland and water interface during your testimonies.
Yes.
So you pointed out that that is a critical component of a functioning marina.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It's also an aesthetic component too. People like to watch the boats and the boaters. That's one of the aesthetics of the Cabana, is to be able to sit there, and even if you don't own a boat, having a beverage, adult beverage, and watching the boaters come and go is entertainment in and of itself.
Okay, thank you. Yuri Baikal?
For the record, Yuri Baikal with TR Transportation Consultants.
Yuri, they have recommended denial of the deviation for access spacing. I believe there was testimony earlier that the access point is already there. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you, for the benefit of the hearing examiner and the audience, show us where that is?
It is right here, that existing full median opening.
And so they have submitted that this will not be safe.
No, it's not a safety issue. We're accessing an existing full median opening, and that existing full median opening actually already has some turn lane improvements already in place that will help with the safety.
And will those issues be further examined and perhaps site-related improvements required at development order stage?
Yes, it will be reviewed by Lee County Department of Transportation during development order process.
And then there's a section on traffic and access impacts. And it says the applicant's traffic analysis avoids confronting the real operational pressures that this project will impose on Hancock Bridge Parkway, and goes on to say that the roadway is already heavily traveled and will not absorb the combined effects of bar traffic, special events, and trailer movement associated with the marina. I believe you testified earlier that you looked at the worst-case scenario when you analyzed the traffic. Is that true?
Yes, correct.
And in your expert opinion, is there, again, a public safety issue associated with the use of this property for the requested uses?
No, not at this time.
And did you have a chance to read the allegations and the traffic and access impacts set forth in the letter?
Yes, very briefly, and my response to that is that we're actually reducing the traffic entitlements on this property with this rezoning request.
Because of the reduction in dry storage spaces?
Yes, that's the main driving point.
Okay, thank you. Brian? Friend, Ms. Williams testified that our application is a substantial intensification of this site. You provided planning and engineering testimony. Would you address whether or not, in your expert opinion, that's a correct statement?
I would say that is not a correct statement. Oh, Brian Smith, for the record, that is not a correct statement. Based on the traffic study that Yuri has provided, we've already depicted and shown that this is a less intense piece of property of what was already previously approved through the CPD that back in, I think, 2005.
Okay, and we heard Ms. Williams testify about noise, and we heard several of the people express concern about noise. And she asked for enforceable standards. Do you know whether or not Lee County has a noise ordinance?
Yes, they do. Ordinance number 2210, and I believe it was just updated to actually lower the decibels along property lines as well as face towards any kind of residential development. So the project would have to comply with those noise ordinances.
And are there daytime and nighttime standards?
I believe that there are 2 different time standards, yes. At certain times, I think it's like at 9 o'clock, and I think it goes on, so on and so forth.
And so in addition to the conditions recommended by staff, there is a controlling defined standard for noise.
There is, yes, ma'am.
And one of the concerns expressed by Ms. Williams was lighting. In her letter, she asked for full shielding of all lighting to prevent glare or illumination impacting residential units. Are you aware of the fact whether or not Lee County does in fact have lighting standards?
Yes, ma'am, and even Donna Marie Collins, she stated that as well, is that Lee County LDC has lighting standards that we have to comply with, and they are full cutoff fixtures. We cannot have light trespass off our property onto your site.
And at the time of local development order, do you in fact have to submit photometric analysis to substantiate that fact?
We not only have to submit a lighting photometric for the parking lot for safety concerns, but if there's any light sconces or any kind of lights that are on the building itself, they also have to be included in a lighting photometric plan so they can be reviewed, and upon construction completion, a light testing is done at the time of completion.
And she asked for a limitation of forklift, conveyor, or comparable, quote, industrial operations before 7 a.m. Have we asked for industrial uses on this site?
We have not.
And if the hearing examiner recommends approval, as requested, will there be any industrial uses on the site?
No, just marina type uses that were part of the CPD and the request.
And to the best of your knowledge, did the staff include a condition that seeks to limit or reduce noise in condition 16 marina operations?
That's correct. They limit the amount of noise that, for example, a forklift upon backing up or in operation, they typically beep, but the staff has conditioned dampening those, that sound.
And they do in fact also restrict the hours.
They do.
And they also restrict public address systems and other things in that condition.
Correct.
Okay. I want to refer you to the Parkway site. The closest building to this site is not residential, is that correct?
That's correct. It is their amenity site that is located in this location right here with their outdoor pool.
And have you had the occasion to work on one more 50, 100 projects that have amenity centers?
I have, yes.
Do you have any knowledge, familiarity with how those amenity centers are used?
I do, yes.
And do those amenity centers allow, to the best of your knowledge, consumption of alcoholic beverages, music, and, for lack of a better word, parties and events?
And some of the projects we work with, yes, they do.
And so the uses on this site would be west of the amenity center before you get to the residential.
The use on this site, yes, it would, As depicted on our MCP, it's located about this portion here. Mr. Mendez, as well as us, did testify that the physical dimension from the use to the building, to the amenity, and to the first condominium is over 500 feet. However, our dimension is to the property line per the LDC, and that was stated.
Is there a restaurant and bar on the east side of Parkway?
Yes, it's in the marina town.
Do they have outdoor seating?
I believe so. They have,
Do they have outdoor consumption of alcohol?
I believe, probably on their deck.
Do you know what their hours are per chance?
I think we just looked it up. Please, Cindy, can you?
These are weekdays, this is weekend.
They're weekdays. Upon looking it up during our break, weekdays they're 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. and their weekends 11 a.m. to, is that a 2 or is that a 12? 12.
So is the use limited to 1,500 square feet on this site consistent with and comparable to the uses on the east side of Parkway?
If not smaller, yes.
I don't believe I have any other questions.
Can I ask, can I address one?
Absolutely.
I want to address one.
Did I forget something?
Yeah, well, the gentleman asked about the 8-foot wall.
And the boat transport.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
The gentleman asked about the 8-foot wall, where would that be located in their buffer? Again, the 25-foot buffer is located in this section right here. It is all on our site, not on your site at all, 100% on our site. Typically, when you have a wall required for the LDC, you have to put that wall into our site minimum of 50%. So the wall could be located at 12.5 to 13 or 14 feet from your property. And all plantings have to go on the outside of the wall facing you. So you don't just have a wall, you have a wall and then the plantings. So that was one that needed to be addressed.
And I did forget to ask about the buffers. There was suggestion during Ms. Williams' testimony that we shouldn't have the indigenous vegetation because that would reduce buffers. Is the indigenous requirement separate and distinct from buffer requirements?
Absolutely. The request, and if you take a look, the area that they're concerned with, of course, being the Parkway properties, this entire area on the east side of the property is 100% disturbed. So all the indigenous requirements and all the indigenous existing is on the west side of the property. So all the buffers, we're not deviating from any landscape buffers at all.
Okay, thank you.
How are the boats entering the water?
Boats. Do we want to put up, I don't know if I want to
Is that
show.
a Ron's question or is that a you question?
It's both. We worked with the client on the master concept plan, but the way, thank you very much. So, what is proposed at this particular time is this is the dry dock storage, and this is a gantry system. It's basically a conveyor belt system. It's fully automated. So boats go through on a conveyor belt, and it drops it in and picks it up and puts it back into the storage facility. That is currently what is proposed right now, with the ability to have service drop-offs and the ability to have potential forklifts inside as well as underneath as well. But that is what is currently proposed. Any other questions? I can.
I don't, are there any questions you believe we failed to address?
No, I think you've addressed everything that was raised.
There was a question regarding power washing boats.
Oh, that's right.
Yep, you know what, I did see
Oh,
that. Same way. Basically, power washing does not occur outside. It's all encapsulated within the dry storage area. That's how these new systems work. Is boat wash, etc. are done inside the building, and quite frankly, I mean, I'm not saying that this is what they're doing. They literally have swimming pools that they put the boat in, and it works inside the building, so it's all abated.
My question with this site plan is, there's this area demarcated as possible exfiltration area, percolation area. Well, if it's not used for that, what is it going to be?
It's open area, it's open space, it's a beach or grass, and the reason why it can be called exfiltration is because we're not impacting it, it's not impervious, it's not hardscape, it's not, pavers, it's not asphalt, so it's an ability for an area to allow water as it rains to percolate into the ground as God intended.
Okay, but the consumption of alcohol is going to be limited to that rectangle.
Correct. We'll have pathways to it. I mean, we will have walkways through it, but in the general sense, if you...
So what will that area be used for?
This is kind of the Cabana Cove. It's kind of their beach, outdoor, the kids can play. So that is we can use artificial turf, we can use regular grass, we can use native grasses, we can use sand, etc.
And site parking is over here to the left?
Yes, ma'am. I want to go to this one that's straight up. I want to go to the site plan. It's a little bit easier to see. Because again, the existing CPD, the parking was to the north, that office area, and this was their large existing today, what is approved. And then what we're proposing is parking to the north. It's oriented north to your left. Again, parking, a building that's not as large as they had before, and then we have just more open space area around the project.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Adam?
Again, for the record, Adam Mendez, Principal Planner, Lee County Zoning Section. I think most of the comments were addressed by the applicant's rebuttal, but I wanted to go through and just talk about what we heard from Ms. Godey regarding intensification. And the way I took that, I don't think she meant intensification in the terms of floor area or ratios like that. While there is some subordinate intensity that's going up, it's pretty minor and incidental. I think what she was saying was that the profile of intensity is changing from potentially early morning hours with the marina, followed by 16 to 18 hours of continuous service all the way to the ending hours that are proposed here with respect to live entertainment and alcohol, and that window outside of hours of operation of the site is shrinking with this proposal, and staff understands it. I think the hearing examiner is sensitive to that as well. So we do hope to just submit to you a revised schedule of uses deviations to reflect Transportation Services Group 1A, provide staff a little more time to evaluate the nearby naughty parrot approval, and to split live entertainment and amplified pipe noises. Those should be regulated separately instead of together in one condition with several hours. I think a lot of the noise that is concerning the neighbors is with regard to the live music and outdoor, not necessarily just the act of consumption on premises of beverages. So I think a finer point on those with a revised set of conditions, I think we can get you something that staff feels comfortable moving forward with to the board.
All right, let's talk about how much time you're going to need that, and I appreciate your willingness to take a closer look at the hours of operation and limitations on amplified sound.
I'm fine.
It's best if you do it, because if I do it, it might not be as palatable. Okay, so today is the 10th. How much time will you need?
I would say the following Friday. I could certainly get you something to your office before then and let you know if there's additional you need.
Wait a second. You mean the 19th?
The following, so not this Friday, the following Friday.
That's the 19th.
That's the 19th, yeah. I could get something to you beforehand. I was just extending the window. I'm anticipating I'm able to work with this record and getting something together quickly.
That's fine. The written record will be left open until 4 p.m. on December 19th for written submissions, summarizing a codified list of conditions and deviations to take into account changes discussed today and possible adjustments to conditions governing the consumption of alcoholic beverages and associated uses with that. All right. That concludes the hearing. The hearing record is closed with the exception of the items that I requested, and I look forward to receiving those and thank everyone for their time. I felt well prepared for this case. I will share that I did a site visit in advance of the hearing, but now after hearing the testimony of members of the public, I will go back again to drive the area to get a better feel of your concerns relative to the site. Thank you.
Thank you.